I'm Christopher Holt, and I was in that band.
Hi, Chris. It's me, Grady.
Hi, Grady.
What's going on?
We've known each other forever.
Yeah, I was thinking about it this morning.
Yeah.
Almost 30 years.
It's funny. I told my wife, I was like, oh, I'm going out to do a podcast with Grady. She goes, oh, you mean little Grady? And I was like, yeah, he's like 48 now. Did I just throw you under the bus because I'm older than you? So
No. I'm only 45.
45. All right. Well, see, that just shows how much older than I always was and always will be.
You born in 72? 73.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm a whopping 52 now.
Just had a birthday in March?
In April.
I'm April too.
You're so close.
I'm gonna nail it soon enough. Well, what's been going on? You put out this record?
Yeah, I've been really busy lately. I just put out this record a few weeks ago, and I'm just getting ready to start a tour with Mike Campbell and the Dirty Knobs. We're about to go to Canada on Tuesday.
I was at the Kessler about a week after you for that Homage Nation.
Oh yeah,
thing.
All the stuff I've seen of that looked amazing. I was going to be a part of that, but I actually had to fly. I had to fly to LA that day.
I convinced Big Mike to let Gruber stand in for you on that gig.
Awesome.
Which turned out great.
Yeah, I mean, Mike said it was fantastic.
I thought it was really cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, everything from your show looked amazing. Like
it went really well. I was very nervous about it because we had a very large band. And of course I just don't know if anybody's ever going to come to these things, and it went as well as it could have possibly gone, I thought.
I feel like Dallas has always been pretty supportive of you.
Yeah. The music scene here, at least the way I always view it in my mind, it was like it was so thriving when I was younger, and now that I'm older, I'm just not as out in it. So I kind of see myself as a bit of an outlier. I spend most of my time on the road and not playing locally. So to play a local show and have it go well, and yeah, I mean, like you said, people have always been very supportive here. So it was really nice. It was really nice to get out there and have this like packed house and be like, oh wow, hometown love,
Are you a sellout?
It was really, really close. I think there were like 20 standing room tickets left.
There's still time.
And they kept saying, you sold it out. And I was like, well, not technically. But it's as good as I've ever done in this town with playing a gig under my own name, So.
Yeah. So I met you starting with that with Walter Mitty.
Yeah.
I got I was underage, pulled into the home bar when I was like 16 or 17 and went to watch you guys play.
Is the TABC going to come after them now? 30 years?
Maybe they
statute
should.
Of limitations on that.
I remember the one time that I had a beer there and the door guy like took it from me, kind of in a you aren't supposed to have this, and I was like, dude, I just bought weed from you. Like. Where are we drawing? I'm very confused.
There's a very blurry line there.
Yeah, I'm very confused. But those were times like I think I was initially impressed because there was such a scene there, and I still don't really know. That was my introduction kind of to like the jam band thing, and that you could be on this. That it had such a culture that you could kind of be the local version of everybody's favorite jam band. And people would just buy into it sort of no matter what. That was my first exposure to that. And now I play with the Dead thing, and I'm like very aware of that. Like, oh, this is just it's
a scene.
Yeah. And these same people I'm like, what's your like weekend look like? Are you just looking at the calendar being like, this is where everyone's going.
This band. Yeah.
Is that the deal? Well, how did that band come to be?
So I didn't really have any contact in that scene. I'd gone to school in Oklahoma, and I was playing in bands in the Norman scene, and I dropped out of OU, flunked out, depending on, I should be honest, I flunked out of OU.
I'm familiar.
Yeah. And it was mainly because I was just not going to class, and I was playing in bands, and I was spending all of my time doing this and not that. But I came back to Dallas, and I just started working in a place called Sal's Pizza over in Oak Cliff. Do you remember that place?
Yeah.
And I was a driver there, and I had the best time working there, just driving around, delivering food.
Listen to music?
Yeah. I mean, it was just one of those, and I was 21 years old, and I that was just a really kind of beautiful time in my life, even though I was living with the shame of having been kicked out of college. I one day picked up the Dallas Observer and saw an ad in the Observer from this guy who turned out to be James Ashcroft. And it's the only time I've ever answered a want ad in my entire life, but it just said keyboardist, or it said pianist searching for a guitarist, influences Fish, Pink Floyd, Mahavishnu Orchestra. And I didn't know much about Fish, and I didn't know that much about Mahavishnu other than that it was, fusion prog kind of thing. But I was really, really infatuated, obsessed with Pink Floyd at the time. Because I am still. But what I really wanted was I wanted a band that was keyboard heavy. I was like, nobody was using keyboards at the time. I was playing piano, but anytime I was playing in a piano band, the soundman would just, the keyboards would be buried in the mix. So the idea that there was this guy who was kind of into interesting music, especially the Pink Floyd part, but I knew that Fish, I knew who Fish were, and I was like, oh, they're great musicians. Oh, Mahavishnu, they're a great musician. Maybe this guy's a great musician. Maybe. So I just called him out of the blue, and he had this funny English accent, and I was just like, oh, I got to go meet this guy. And that was how Walter Mitty came to be. Literally, we wrote a couple songs the first 2 days we knew each other, and then went out and he introduced me to all his friends. He was an SMU kid, and what he was tapping into were all these SMU jam band kids. Like, he knew all these SMU kids that were totally into the Dead and totally into Fish, and they were going to all these shows all over the U.S. And I just kind of got in with them and got to be friends. And then we met Derek, who became the drummer, and Matt McCaffrey. And so within a year's time of meeting James, we were writing songs, and we had a band, and we started playing this place called the Regal Beagle. You remember the Regal Beagle?
I do. I played there.
Yeah. And then it was not long after that we moved to the Green Elephant, and then the what became the Home Bar, which is where I met you.
Yeah.
But it was all about tapping into that SMU scene, just trying to. And, and I wasn't into jam bands. Like, I'm a Beatles guy. I was always into older music for sure, but I was really into melodic stuff. But I also liked prog. And one thing about Fish that, of course, hanging around with James, I got way into Fish. And I was like, wow, this guitar player is out of this world. And I loved the fact that they were all such great players.
Yeah.
And that they were so versatile. They could play any style of music. So, I went through a very heady Fish phase. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say that I was into jam bands in general. I was into Fish, and I've always liked the Dead. Mm-hmm. I've always loved the songwriting in the Dead, particularly Jerry.
Yeah, I feel the same way about, I know I like the two biggest jam bands, but like beyond that, I'm not really interested in that as a genre.
Yeah, I grew out of Fish. I really was into Fish during that 95. Like that to me was like, I saw them at Red Rocks, and I was like, I had my mind totally blown by that. But within a few years, I was like, okay, I'm not as into this. But all the bands I was playing in, we had catered to that scene. Mm-hmm. So it was still like you said, it was like we were the little mini Fish in the Dallas music scene.
Yeah.
And it's amazing when, you could have all these different bands playing all these different clubs to 10, 15, 20, 40 people. But then we would be playing our shows, and there would be 200 people or 300 people there. And it would be like, wow, this scene, it didn't matter. It wasn't about us. It was about the scene.
Right.
And we thought we were great. And, maybe some of the stuff we were doing was pretty cool, but it was totally tapping into a scene.
So then so Walter Mitty goes sort of begat Olo Spo.
Yeah. So eventually James and Lindsay, who were in Walter Mitty with me, they moved to Austin, and I moved to Austin briefly too.
I didn't know that.
It was very brief. I had a gig. I had a consistent gig with Hard Nights Day in Dallas that was paying my bills. I had a girlfriend that was living here who's now my wife. And I was like not on board with the Austin plan. So I kind of split off. And that was when Tom Bridwell and I hooked up with Britt Morris and Nick Ramirez and started Olo Spo. And we totally capitalized on the popularity that Walter Mitty had around town. We immediately just segued into the next phase of kind of Fish influenced jam band stuff.
And y'all hit it hard. Like not only locally, but I remember you guys were going out on the road.
We went out on the road, and we did it. I mean, that band lasted 4 or 5 years, and we kind of broke up after a year of being on the road and just struggling. And I remember everybody was really just kind of losing their minds. And at that point, by 2003, I was real burned on that scene. I was like, I do not want to do jam band music anymore. I had already started writing. I had been writing all these songs that didn't fit the band, that sounded completely different. And I knew that I wanted to make a solo record, and I knew that I wanted to just kind of do my own thing. So that was what happened. I moved back to Dallas. Well, we came back to Dallas. The band broke up, and then I started playing with all these other bands around town. That was when I really got involved with the scene.
Yeah, and you mentioned, I heard a thing recently, we were talking about that was more of a calculated thing, like instead of, so like almost at the same time that you go, I'm going out on my own, you also say, are like, it's a little bit of a calculated, I'm going to get out and play with other people and make myself known.
Yeah, it was kind of serendipitous the way it happened, because I'm not that outgoing. I'm pretty introverted, so it's not like I go up to people all the time and go, "Hey, I'm Chris. Hey, I'm Chris." But as soon as we came back, I started doing this thing at Club Dada every Friday called Chris Holt's Jukebox, because I needed money and I didn't want to have to get a job. So I took this residency gig there, and it was me and Drew Hunter and Nick Ramirez, and we would go up and we would kind of do this stump the band thing, because just those guys, we all knew so many songs, we could just get up there and jam. So I started meeting a lot of people, and it was within, I don't know, a few months of that I met I met Chad Stockslager, and I met all the guys in Sorta, and I met all the guys in Pleasant Grove, and I met Jeff Jones, who had a band called The Jones Thing, and I met Doug Burr, who was doing The Lonelies, and I think it was Trey and Carter were the first ones who kind of invited me to sit in, because Carter Albrecht was doing the New Bohemians, and he was touring with Edie. And so every once in a while, Carter'd be gone for a month, and Sorta would have gigs, and they'd call me and they'd be like, "Hey, can you come sub for Carter?" So I just started getting in with all these local bands and playing just as much as I possibly could.
Yeah.
That's when I met, and I was playing in cover bands. I met Mike Reiner. I started playing with Petty Theft, doing the Ben Mott Tench role, playing keyboards for Petty Theft. So I was just trying to take every gig I could. And I did that for 2 or 3 years.
So I like going on this solo trip and like leaving that scene behind where, we had done, I remember my old band and yours would play at Granada Theater.
Bag.
Yes.
Yeah.
And would get together and do the Granada Theater.
Yeah.
And like, that seems to me like it would be so, aside from the hassle of going out on the road, is there some thought of like, let's just come home and do our thing and we have a little scene here? Or is it hard to back off from that?
Well, initially when Olo Spo came off the road, we broke up. Like, we split. It was just everybody's going in different directions. And that's when I started making my solo album, my first solo album, which was called Summer Reverb. And I started doing that jukebox thing, started playing with guys like Sorta and Doug Burr. But what we found out very quickly was when Mike Schroeder opened the Granada Theater in 2004, after we'd been broken up for 5 or 6 months, he was like, "Hey, I got to have Olo Spo. You guys got to get back together and play." And when we did, it was packed.
Okay.
And so what we realized was, we've still got a following here.
Mm-hmm.
We can still play here. We can still play Austin. So rather than working up new material and trying to put out more records or doing it, we would just get together and play gigs every 4 or 5 months, and we would do really well. But that kind of wore out after a few years, and then and it just because then I started doing I put out the solo record, and then I started a band called The Slack. And at that time there was a lot of there was pressure from certain people to, "Hey, we need to call this Olo Spo," even though it was a completely different sound. And Britt was going off to do real estate at that point, and and then Nick decided to leave. So I had Eric Neal and I had Steve Luthi on board, and we were doing Olo Spo songs, but we were also doing these brand new songs that sound, that were like little angular power pop things.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually it was like, okay, we cannot call this Olo Spo. First of all, that's the worst band name in history. Nobody can pronounce it. Nobody can spell it. It's so impossible to explain where we came up with it in the first place. And so that was where we became the Slack.
Okay.
And so it was just an evolution.
And are you also doing solo shows, or is it?
Yeah. I was doing, so when anytime I put out a solo album, I put together a band and then I do a handful of shows before I'm like, all right, we're good. Because it's just too much for me to coordinate. I've never been good at the business part of it. I'm only good at the music part. I'm good at being a band leader when music is the thing.
Mm-hmm.
But anytime I have to be in charge of the promotion or the, dealing with the club owners or the promoters or handling the money or any of that, I'm just like, I get so turned off by that part that I don't.
Have you sought out like management, or do you have a?
Yeah, I've had various degrees of management over the years, and I've never had any. I would never say I've definitely never had a long-term manager that worked out for me.
Yeah.
So, which I do need that. So if you're listening,
yeah, please apply within.
Yeah, boy, I just opened a can of worms from hell, right?
Hey, so okay, how does that open the door to like where you are now?
So that opened the door because what happened was during that time period from say 2004 to about 2008, I was playing in a dozen different bands. And I started winning a bunch of Dallas Observer Awards.
I remember.
So I won Best Guitarist, I won Best Instrumentalist, I won Musician of the Year 3 or 4 times, to the point where there was like this kind of backlash of, fuck that guy, get him out of the category.
You're no good anymore.
Yeah, and it was kind of funny because it was like me and Salim and some of the
Ryan would typically be in those too.
Yeah.
Or maybe Ryan kind of took over.
Well, and Ryan, I was a little bit before Ryan, but then when Ryan kind of came up, it was like,
so you're the guy
they
now.
would push me out and they'd be like, this guy. And I'd be like, yeah, he's amazing, because he's amazing. But so I had kind of a reputable name in the Dallas music scene. And there came a point when my kids were born, when Peyton was born and then when Maddie was born, where I just didn't want to gig as much. I knew that I wasn't going to be on the road. The Slack was in the process of we were breaking up. We put out a couple of records. So there were tons of records that were happening, but I was just getting burned out on playing. So I settled into teaching and I started doing Zound Sounds, and I became the band director there. And
Did you teach yourself to read? Did I hear that? Right?
Yeah. It was just a way of kind of staying ahead of the game. I mean, I'm mostly self-taught.
Same.
And then theory came later, and I kind of obsess over theory now. But I still like, if you put complex sheet music in front of me, I'll be like, give me 20 minutes to look at this before, because I can't just like sight read like that. That's not comfy, and I don't enjoy it. But I use it for reference.
I think around that same, 2006 or so, I did the same thing. I got into teaching.
It was just a way to keep session gigs.
For a little while there, my reading was pretty sharp, but
yeah,
same deal. Put it in front of me, I'll be like, give me a minute.
Yeah, but once you kind of figure out the chart game, whether it's Nashville charts or actual chord charts, very rarely does somebody put a book of sheet music in front of you. I remember one time I had to turn down a gig with Naked Lunch, the Steely Dan band, Michael Crane's band, because I think I drunkenly said, "Oh yeah, I know all those songs, man. I know all, dude." And because in my head I do. I'm like, I know all the guitar solos. Oh, well, we need a keyboard player. And I was like, sure, no problem. And then he created this giant book of notation, Steely Dan notation. And I just called him the next day and I said, I am not good enough to be in your band. I'm sorry. I said, I lied. I am not capable.
Awesome.
But but how that all came to be was, so I taught at Zound Sounds, and I became the band director there and did that for years. And I really didn't think I would ever go back out on the road. I mean, I was doing session work and I was still writing songs and making my own music, but I kind of had accepted that none of it was ever going to be heard by anybody. But one day, Salim Narala, the great Salim, called me. And Salim and I had been playing for years and years. And I'd been a session player in his studio, Pleasantry Lane. And I'd been his guitar player in various bands of his. He called me and he said, how would you like to teach Don Henley's kid guitar? And I went, I knew that Don had a house here in Dallas. I knew he was from Texas. I knew he had a house in Dallas. And I was like, well, yeah, sure. No problem. And he said, oh, I'm going to give Don your number. And that's what opened the door to the next chapter of my life. I just kind of randomly, I mean, it's not completely random because there's a series of things that put you in a position to meet somebody. But so I met Don, and within a few days of meeting him and beginning to teach his kid, then I was in the studio with him, and I started working with him on his album that became Cass County. And then just over the course of a couple years, he kept calling me and asking me to do things, which culminated with me going to Las Vegas and subbing for Pete Thorne, the great Pete Thorne, who was his guitarist at the time. And then Don offered me the touring gig.
You did that. Was it his 70th birthday party at AAC?
Yeah.
Did you do that too?
Yeah. That was in 2017, I think.
So that
I'd been playing with him for several years at that point. Yeah.
Like he's just like pulls you into to start. He's just like, hey, can you do a solo on this song? Or we need a guitar solo. Can you do it?
And I think when he did that, it was just kind of like, let's see if this kid cracks.
Right.
You know, because literally he was just like, you want to take a shot at this solo? And I just kind of looked around like, are you talking to me?
Yeah.
And then I was like, yeah, sure. Give me the guitar.
And then you end up kind of, I think as you told me before, you do the solo and then he's like, well, now let's put a 12 string on this, or like, let's do other stuff on this song. And you kind of end up.
Yeah, I just wound up turning a 5-minute opportunity into a couple days of work in the studio with him, which made the record. And I thought that was the coolest thing that would ever happen.
Is that your one song on the record, or
it's the one song I'm on the record? Yeah. Okay. But what happened was he would just call me from time to time to do things. There would be he needed an accompanist for an event that he was going to do, and rather than fly in people from other, he just knew, hey, Chris, could you come do this? We're going to do a song, and then he very generously offered to sing on my my previous solo album, Stargazer, which, like, I was working on a track with him, and then we were doing it at Bridwell's studio, and he was like, "So you're working on a record here?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm finishing up this thing. Oh, let me know if you want me to sing on it." And I was just like, Don, you can sing the whole record.
Yeah. This is now your record if you want it.
And but so after we did this event together, he pulled me aside and said, "Hey, I'm about to go to Europe with the Eagles for a couple of months, but when I get back, I'll sing on that song." And I was like, "You're serious about that?" Like, I totally didn't realize it was a legitimate offer. But he came in one day. It was me and Paul Williams at the studio, and he came and sang a duet on a song that I wrote. Which I was like, so I thought that was the coolest thing that would ever happen. But then a few months later, he called me and asked me to come do a gig in Vegas with the full band.
With the Eagles?
It wasn't the Eagles.
That was his solo band.
It was his solo band. And
that's like Milo and...
Yeah. Well, so Milo wasn't there when I did the first gig, because the first gig was just...
Milo Deering, by the way.
Yeah, the great Milo Deering.
Yeah.
But so the Cass County record was about to come out, and it was just a private event in Vegas. And I think that was my audition. It was kind of like, let's see if Chris can handle the full band. And it was, we did a 90-minute set where we played it was nothing but hits. I mean, it was every single song was a classic.
I love it.
And I was doing guitar solos. I was singing harmonies. I was doing all this stuff. And I did it on basically no rehearsal. Like, I came and watched the band play with Pete on guitar and took notes, and then had some discussions with Will Hollis, who's the music director of the band, And then I came in and just did the gig blind, and got a call a couple weeks later, asking me to come to LA to shoot a video with Dolly Parton. And I was like, and then that was where I was like, holy shit, this is really, and it was while I was there in LA at the Village Recorders that I got asked to do the tour.
Wow.
And I was like, how did this happen? At 40, I was like at 40, thinking thinking that
those days were over.
Yeah. Like I couldn't even believe it. So, but then that was 12 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if we're getting ahead of ourselves, but I remember that his birthday show at the American Airlines Center was a big deal. And you got to play on that, and like Stevie Nicks.
Yeah,
was
there were a bunch of guests.
Were there other Eagles?
Yeah, Joe. That was the first time I played with Joe. Timothy was there. Stevie Nicks. Patty Smythe.
No Glenn Fry though.
No, Glenn.
Okay.
No, Glenn had already passed away at that point.
Okay.
So Glenn passed away at the beginning of 2016, and the Eagles went on what we assumed was indefinite hiatus.
Sure.
And so during that time, we were touring the world with Don. From 2015 to close to the end of 2017, we just went around the world with Don. And I did not think the Eagles would be getting back together. But it was somewhere during that time period that Don had maybe talked to Vince Gill about the possibility of doing it. But it was really Deacon Fry, I think, who sealed the deal, because they saw Deacon sing a couple songs, and they were like, and I think it was Don who was like, wow, Deacon's good. He could actually, I think that the light bulb went off that the Eagles could still be a thing.
Okay.
So then when the Eagles came back, Don's solo stuff became fewer and further between. But we would still do stuff. Like we were doing Joe's Vets Aids. We got to play with Ringo, so there would still be 4 or 5 Don gigs a year, and they would always be these huge blowouts. And but that birthday party was one of them.
Yeah. And you played with Ringo?
Yeah. Yeah. I got to do, with a little help from my friends with Ringo, I got to sing the Lennon part and trade solos with Walsh.
Okay.
I thought that was the coolest thing that would ever happen to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought nothing could ever top that.
And then, how does this work into the like Max Weinberg gig, or are they related?
Well, it's not really related. It's just kind of coincidence. Some of the other gigs that I've gotten have come. Okay, so the way I got the Max Weinberg gig was I met this guy named Tony Kishman in 2017, and it was during that summer. It was the same summer that we did Don's birthday party, and Doug Cox. Remember Doug from Hard Night's Day?
Yeah.
Okay, so Doug texted me one day in the summer. I was in New Braunfels, and he said, "Hey, are you in town?" And I said, "No, but I'm coming back to town in a couple of days." And he said, "Okay, this guy named Tony Kishman, he's a McCartney guy, and he's got a gig at the Eisman Center in Dallas, and he needs a keyboard player. I'm giving him your number." And this guy, Tony, called me out of the blue. It turns out he has a keyboard player in New York who's got an ear infection, and he can't fly. So at the last minute, he needs somebody who can learn his whole show and just sub on keyboards. So I did it. And while I was there, I hit it off with all these guys in his band. They're all Brooklyn guys. John Murjavi was the guitar player, and he plays in this band called The Weaklings, but he also has a long-running gig with Max Weinberg. So when the Henley band kind of went on hiatus, or started being few and far between, then I started doing these gigs with Tony, because he just started calling me to do all these road gigs, just touring gigs. And John and I became great friends. And John called me one day and said, "Hey, I do these tours with Max Weinberg, and we're looking for a new guitar player who knows all this, who could do all this material." And Max's whole gig, his whole side band, is called Max Weinberg's Jukebox, which is kind of a funny tie-in to
used to be in that band.
I know, totally. And John just said, "Well, it's like 300 songs, and there's never a set list. There's a scrolling video. There's a video screen with a scrolling song list, and the audience chooses the songs on the spot, and you just have to know everything." And he said, "I think you might be able to handle this gig." And,
yeah.
and he said, "I'm going to send you the list. I want you to just call me back and tell me how many of the songs you know. So I looked at the list, and it was all old music. It was all classic 60s and 70s, Beatles, Stones, Kinks, Zeppelin. It's just all kinds of stuff
Seems
that I grew up on.
Tailor-made for you.
So I called him and I said, yeah, I know 80% of it, which is a lie. I probably only knew 70% of it, but he said, okay, learn the other 20% and you got the gig. So that's what I did. And so that turned into, I don't play with Max very often these days because he's been out with Bruce for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so that's just another touring gig I have is with Max, which is a trip, man. And you talk about stressful. You walk on stage and you have no idea what you're going to play.
Yeah, that's.
I'm like, it's a high stress gig.
I love the idea of that, and I wish I badly want to be in a band that does that, but I'm too. I have to prepare. I have to have a plan.
I'm the same way. I like to live in between that.
Mm-hmm.
I love being fully prepared. I love having a set list, but I also like improvisation and I like spontaneity.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I think Max likes, but it's one of the things that Mike Campbell likes about me is that I'm not afraid to go off the cliff.
Yeah. Yeah. I write a set list, or I like to walk into every gig with a plan.
Yeah.
And I tell the guys in the band, and I'll sometimes bring it up to the audience, like, hold up a set list and be like, this is my idea. And if anybody else has any better idea, we can throw this thing away. We can completely go in another direction. And sometimes I do.
It can be dangerous when you let the audience do that.
I know, but I'm just kind of sending a message.
But if there's a give and take with the audience, then
yeah.
I mean, obviously with Max Weinberg, like he has it. Like he's not going to put a song on the list that he doesn't want to play. And like sometimes people will ask for songs that aren't on the list, and he'll be like, 300 songs on that list, and you're picking one that.
That's just human nature.
Yeah.
I do that. Like I'll do that with guys. Like with I think in my band, I used to like have this is what we're playing, and then there would be like the rest of the list would be like on the next page. And there's always guys who'd be like, why aren't we playing this, this, and this? So I just stopped sending the second page. I'm like, here's what we're playing.
Yeah.
But I think that is just human nature. For some reason, you're just like, well, what's being left off of this or whatever? You give me a choice of 300. I want number 301.
I'm always the guy that wants to play whatever we didn't play at the last gig. You know? I mean, you remember that about me from years ago. Like, I never want to play the same show twice.
Yeah,
I get tired of playing the same things over and over, and I'm always like even when I was doing the Beatle gig, like I didn't want to play the hits. I'd be like, I don't want to play Twist and Shout.
Mm-hmm.
I want to play, It's All Too Much.
Yeah.
I'd be, nobody wants to hear that. I'm like, I want to hear it.
Yeah.
I was like, I know there are other people that are hardcore Beatle fans out there like me that want to hear She Said, or, you know what I mean? It was
yeah.
So it's like, I would never ever work in a boots and suits Beatle band. One of the things I like about Tony Kishman is that he plays deep cuts. He doesn't really play the hits. I mean, he plays some of the Wings hits, but he plays tons of deep cuts, and like it's more of the orchestral.
And it's all McCartney.
It's all McCartney, but it's Beatles too.
Yeah,
so it'll be like there'll be orchestral. Like a lot of times we play with actual orchestras.
That's cool.
Like that first gig that I played with him at the Eisman Center, there was a whole orchestra on that gig.
Fantastic.
So that's kind of more my speed, is to do the ambitious material as opposed to I Want to Hold Your Hand or Hard Day's Night.
Yeah. Yeah, you have like there's something to like just your approach that implies ambition. There's like do you love the challenge of music?
Yeah. And I mean, I'm not good enough to be a jazz musician or a classical musician, because I'm a rock musician with limitations, but I do like, I love prog and I love improv, and I like the challenge of doing stuff that's not super easy. And I just don't like, I'm stubborn. I don't like dumbing it down.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I feel like, it's like, oh, we're going to play Sweet Caroline. Like, no, I'm not playing that.
Yeah.
To me, that's dumbing it down. Like,
yeah.
I want to challenge the audience, and I get into, I'd sometimes get into arguments with bandmates who are like, no, man, we got to keep them dancing. And I'm like, fuck dancing. Can I say that on this show?
You absolutely
You just did.
can. Yeah. I'm sort of a like give and take. I
No,
know
dude, I know. And like, if I were left to my devices all the time, nobody would show up because you gotta have, there has to be that give and take. And I know you know that as a band leader, trying to play to audiences that want to hear familiar material. You know,
there are also people who are nerds and they want to hear. There's sometimes people will be like they want to feel like they know what's going on. I've figured people don't want to be educated. No one wants to be sat there and be like, well, this was blah, blah. I dislike it when people start explaining what's going on. I don't like it when songwriters tell you what a song's about.
I know. I hate it when people want to know exactly what it's about because you're like, can't you just like use your brain or use your use your imagination? It's so much cooler if you think you know what it's about rather than me telling you what it's about.
Yeah. And I don't like people going, well, actually, this song was written by blah, 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 and it goes like this, but people like to feel smart, I think, and like to feel like they're sort of an insider. And even when they're dancing, I think they need a break. And so if I'm like, people are going to dance to this, this, and this, they never dance to this. Let's play this. And I know it's something that either the band likes or it's something that someone I know maybe in the audience wants to hear. And that'll be my gripe with it sometimes. Like, let's play this. I'm like, if you want to lose the whole room for a second, then we should absolutely play that. But sometimes I like doing that.
Yeah.
There's do one for them, one for us, one for that person. And then
it's all balance, you know? And if you're a good band leader, I mean, assuming the band leader is the one making the set list, if you're a good writer of the set list, you know how to balance that. You know how to get them, you know how to hook them, how to keep them.
Yeah.
And then maybe throw in that deep cut that isn't going to lose them and then follow it up with something that's going to knock them out of the park, you know?
Yeah.
That's a gift being able to do that. And I do think I'm actually really good at that, but I do have a stubborn side that like if I'm left entirely to my own devices, I can certainly push the limits of what what the audience will tolerate.
Yeah. So then I guess like if I'm sort of loosely following a timeline, but I think we get into the pandemic. You do this all request Thursdays thing.
Yeah.
Which is, did it get to 100?
It got to 99.
Yeah.
And I retired it at 99 just to kind of be a dick.
Yeah. Okay. Speaking of your own devices.
Yeah. Well, it was really just because there were so many questions. Oh, what are you going to do for 100? What are you going to do? And I finally was like, oh man, I don't even want to mess with it. And I was really, and so right when that was happening was when I started making the solo album that just came out. Mm-hmm. And I just shifted my focus entirely. And I thought, oh, wouldn't it be funny if I just never did 100? I mean, I still might do it someday, but I thought, wouldn't it be funny if I just kind of walked away from the whole thing at this point?
99.
Yeah, 99.
Yeah. But that was cool. That was always a fun thing. And I would, either watch it live or look at the set list the next day and be like, "Ooh, I want to hear that." And I go through and pick out.
It was fun for me because it gave me something to do. Because like all of us that are pro musicians, when the pandemic happened, I mean, we had just put out the first Bastards of Soul record, and we had huge plans, and I had tours with Tony Kishman booked. I had tours with Max Weinberg booked. I had all this stuff that just got erased, and after the first week of shock. Be looking at it going, oh, I'm not going to be working for the next 3 weeks. And then it became, oh, I'm not going to be working for the next 9 weeks. I saw Big Mike doing it. I saw Big Mike get online and play songs for a couple of hours. And then he made a killing. He called me and goes, oh, you're not going to believe how much money I made in tips last night. And I was like, well, I can do that, and so it was just done out of necessity at first. But then after a couple months when everybody else got tired of doing the online shows, I was just getting into the idea of, well, what if rather than just being a guy with an acoustic guitar singing Blackbird or whatever, what if that was when I started learning how to use loopers. Mm-hmm. I just did it out of kind of necessity. It was like, oh, I want to just find something to do. And rather than just loop chords and play guitar solo over it, it was like, well, what happens if I hook in the drums, and what happens if I hook in the microphone and I start stacking harmonies? And then it became, okay, request a song and I will build it for you in real time. And I would never tell them what I'm building because I wanted to see if they could guess it. So that became kind of a game.
Right.
And so over the course of, I don't know, I mean, it went on for a few years, but that really was very stimulating for a while. And there was a little audience for it too.
Yeah.
Not a big audience, but it was a very loyal, fun group of people that watched those shows and enjoyed it. So
again, I think there's something to your approach baked in there because you see, oh, I can just play. I could just sit here and play, and I could take requests, and I could do this. You could have done 99 shows, just taking requests
and playing the same songs each week or whatever, you know. And that was the thing is I tried really hard not to repeat songs.
Did you?
Occasionally, but it was like at the end of the thing, it was something like 2,000 songs that got played.
Yeah.
And
how many typically a night?
Well, in the beginning, when it was just me and the piano or me and the guitar, without all the looping symphonies, I could do 30. I mean, because I didn't give a shit, man. I'd play for 3 hours, 4 hours, you know, but I could do 30 or 40 songs. But then when I started doing all the building stuff, and, you know, people didn't have a ton of patience for it. You know, you knew who the loyal fans were the ones who would stick around and watch. But it would maybe be like 20 songs a night.
Are you as good with lyrics as you are with music?
I used to be. I'm not as good anymore. It's starting to slip a little bit in my old age. But yeah, I've got pretty good recall. A lot of times it's just give me the first line of a verse and then I can, you know, it's like, you know, she lit a burner on the stove and then I've got the rest of the verse, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, but a lot of times it's like, what's the 7th verse of that song?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Dylan's songs are pretty tricky.
Yeah. Well, you played with Dylan. Okay. We'll go. I went to see
nice
Mike.
Segue.
I went to see Mike Campbell at Trees. Mike Campbell and the Dirty Knobs.
I was there too.
I know that.
And that was just a couple months before I joined. So
I think I kind of busted you at the front of the stage after the show, both of us looking over the lip of the stage at Mike's pedal board.
Yeah.
But did you hang out with him that night?
No. So the way, have I told you how that whole thing
Did you already know Stan?
I didn't. Well, no, I did. No, I did know Stan.
Stan Lynch played drums that night.
Yes. And I did know Stan already because Stan and I worked together in Henley's band.
Okay.
I worked with Stan on the Cass County record, and I worked with Stan when Henley played Austin City Limits.
Okay.
So Stan was involved with all that. So I did actually know Stan, but the connection there was Lance Morrison, who's the bass player in the Dirty Knobs.
Okay.
And it goes all the way back to years and years of traveling on Henley tours, and because Lance was the bass player in Henley's band.
Okay.
And we would always talk about all these things that we do on the side. And one of the things he did was he played in this side project called the Dirty Knobs with Mike Campbell. And this was when Tom was still alive and the Heartbreakers were still Mike's main gig.
Yeah.
And I would always say, "Oh man, Mike's one of my favorite guitar players ever. You got to introduce me to him." And he would, I'd be like, "Oh, I want to jam with you guys." "Oh, well, we've already got this other guitar player, Jason." And I was like, "Oh, well, let me play keyboards." "Oh, we don't need a keyboard player, you know." And so I had for years planted this seed with Lance where I was like, "I'd love to meet Mike. I'd love to jam with you guys." And it was that night where Lance put me on the guest list to see the show, and I didn't actually get to hang out with Mike, but Lance hinted to me that Jason was not very happy and that he was considering leaving the band. And that didn't come to fruition for a couple more months. Mm-hmm. But it was right when Max Weinberg, I was on a Max Weinberg gig in New York, and Max told us, "Guys, this is the end of the road for a while. I'm getting ready to go out with Bruce for a long," and, you know, I mean, that Bruce thing's been going on for 2 or 3 years now.
Yeah.
And there have been Max gigs in between, but we knew that the gravy train of playing with Max was going to go away for a while. And so I was literally just like sitting there in Brooklyn going, "Oh man, what am I going to do now?" And, you know, the Bastards of Soul had broken up, and I was like, and then I got this call from Lance and he was like, "Dude, Jason left the band. I'm giving Mike Campbell your number." And they had a tour booked. I mean, like Jason left, during a time when they couldn't just take a break. They had to fill that slot. And it was just kind of lucky that Lance gave him my number, knowing that I'd be a fan. And Mike called me a few days later, and I went to LA and jammed with him, and then it was just kind of a good fit.
And then...
But that Tree show was just like, it was just a couple months before that.
There was some, I don't know why, I guess like some I just had some feeling, I don't know, and maybe I saw you with Lance.
Maybe I told you about it that night. Maybe I said I'm doing some recon in case I get the call. You know?
Yeah. So, but I mean, that's amazing. I love Mike too.
And that's been a really amazing experience. Just because that's been what 3 years now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, and then Farm Aid 2 years ago.
Yeah. So that was. So I'd been touring with the Knobs for a while at that point, and we'd made a record. We had a record that came out last year, and then we've got another new record that's I don't think it's going to come out this year, but we've already essentially finished the recording, and now it's being mixed. But Mike called right as we were getting ready to start a tour, and he said, Bob called, and Bob wants to do a surprise Farm Aid, like he wants to make a surprise appearance, not tell anybody about it at Farm Aid, and he wants us to be the backing band. I was like, what? I mean, I couldn't even process that. But then the next thing you know, I'm in LA and we're rehearsing with Bob.
What's rehearsing with Bob mean? What did y'all do? I saw you showed me that picture of y'all at Mike's house.
Yeah. So Bob wanted Benmont on the gig. So we got Benmont on the gig too. So it was the Knobs.
Steve Ferroni.
Yeah. Ferroni on drums, who's been with the Knobs now for, I guess I was in there for a year before Ferroni came in.
Was Steve on the gig before the Farm Aid show? Was he already with the Dirty Knobs?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So Ferroni came in and took over for Matt Logg because Matt Logg left and joined AC/DC. Yeah.
That's a gig.
Big, they're an up and coming band.
Oh my God. I would love, oh man.
Yeah.
All right.
I just went and saw him a couple months ago at
like that would be
AT&T
a dream
Stadium.
gig for any drummer, like meat and potatoes motherfucker who wants to just lay it down.
Yeah. And that's like his favorite band too.
Awesome.
I mean, it was just like the ultimate dream gig for Matt to get that. But Ferroni came in at that point when Matt left. And so Ferroni had been with us for maybe 5 or 6 months.
Okay.
And it was just suddenly we were just at Mike's house rehearsing with Bob. And
is Steve rehearsing with y'all? Do you rehearse full band?
Yeah. So it was me, Mike, Lance, Steve, Benmont, and Bob. And we just got in a room and just started throwing out song titles. And what Bob had told Mike on the phone was that he wanted to play some old stuff that he never plays. And we were like, what the?
Yeah. What does that mean?
Yeah. So
how old we talking?
No, I mean, we were playing, we played, I mean, I remember on the first day we played Hattie Carroll. We played, I know, dude. And we played, we played like a verse of Rolling Stone. I got to play like a verse of Rolling Stone with Bob before Bob kind of started, I don't want to play that one. And we were all just like, oh.
Come on, man.
I know, dude, it was, but Bob's, and Bob was delightful. I mean, he was very friendly and charming and funny, and, and he would, I kind of likened it to, it's like he's like there's a fly buzzing around the room, and that's Bob's muse, because what Bob wants 1 minute is different from what Bob wants 5 minutes later. And Bob just doesn't ever like to stay in the same place. So, we might pick a song that we want to work on, and then we might try it 4 or 5 different ways before we settle on a version for the day. And then the next day it's something else,
I was thinking about that recently. I think after you talked about that on the podcast I listened to, Dallas Famous, is that what that was called?
Yeah.
Andrew Sherman, is that the music?
Andrews. Yeah.
He was at the Kessler thing. So I feel like, obviously he likes to change up. I think everyone's sold on, Bob likes to keep people guessing. I think he likes to keep himself guessing, and including and everyone who's on the stage with him. Those are people he also likes to keep guessing. I feel like since his thing is songs, it is a little bit of a flex to just be like, I wrote this song and I can play it any way you can possibly imagine, and it's still a good song. I kind of think that's what he's doing.
Yeah.
Is going, I wrote this song 60 years
I'm
ago.
going to make it unrecognizable, and then it's still going to work.
Right. And you can't do that with a Led Zeppelin song.
Right.
You can't do that with a prog song. You can't like deconstruct a thing like that because he's got this very simple formula of I have these chords and I have these words, and there's like this lulling quality to his music. There's magic in it, and he understands it because I can sit there and listen to Mr. Tambourine Man and I'm like, yeah, Mr. Tambourine Man, but when he starts singing about like to dance along the diamond sky with one hand waving free, like it's giving me chills right now to say those words.
Yeah.
And it's like, he's lulled you into this place. He's like brought you into this place where you're kind of like, yeah, I get it. It's
it's a Pied Piper.
Nice words. It's cool. And all of a sudden you're like, oh man, I'm here. Like I'm in this place. That's sort of the genius of it for me, or like what I take away from it. And I'm way sold on it.
Yeah. Me too. And so for me being there, it led to a lot of discussions about Bob's catalog and about the nature of genius. And, like there were lots of like late night drinking, not with Bob, because, Bob was just not like Bob was not partying with us, but we would all sit around and talk about Bob for weeks. We were just fascinated trying to understand this guy who's in the same room with us and what makes him tick and what are his motivations. And, but
did Benmont hang?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, and he's a nerd.
Oh, like, and he's a Bob disciple, just like
right.
Mike and Benmont are both total Bob disciples. And one of the beautiful things about Benmont was that we kind of called him the Bob Whisperer, because sometimes Bob and Mike would be talking about an arrangement and Mike would kind of be like unsure of what's going on. But then Ben would have this great ability to kind of know the right thing to say.
Mm-hmm.
What if we tried it like this? Or, what if we try, and so it was really cool the way the chemistry worked. One of the things that I thought was amazing was, we talked about Positively 4th Street, and we had just kind of kicked around a variety of unusual arrangements for it. And Benmont just said, man, what if we did it just like the record? And he played that, and it was like, and my eyes just bulged hearing Benmont play that lick. And then Bob kind of smiled and he's like, you got a lot of nerve, like, and, he's not singing it just like the record, but he's growling that vocal. And we did it. And man, when we did that at Farm Aid, like that was one of the ones we did at Farm Aid with the intro from the record, man, the crowd went nuts.
Yeah.
Hearing that lick. And
I was on a gig in Kansas and the, internet blew up. I'm a Bob nerd, like, Twitter, like that's sort of my community or whatever. And so like everybody went ape shit when it was like, oh my God, it's Bob with the Dirty Knobs at Farm Aid.
The whole time that it was happening, the whole time that we were on stage playing, I'm watching, because, the only thing you can do when you're playing with Bob is watch Bob. Ferroni's back there going, oh, what bar do we go to the bridge? And you're like, you're counting? You can't count.
Yeah.
You just don't. The only thing you can do is watch Bob and follow Bob. So the whole time we were doing that, we're all just kind of on edge, just doing it. And I don't know if are we doing well? Is this going well? I can't really tell. I'm having a hard time reading whether Bob's having fun or whether, obviously the audience is reacting a certain way. So we come off stage and I'm like, I don't know if that was good or not, until Bob smiled real big and was kind of, hey, that was great. That was great. And then suddenly the internet exploded with all these Bob people who were freaking out because he had played guitar and he stood up and played songs that he hadn't played in however many years. And suddenly it was this seismic event. So I was sitting there going, oh, and I was worried that they were going to hate us,
Yeah. I think he's got an audience that really is like,
they will follow him wherever
whatever
he
you
goes.
want to do.
Totally.
We're cool with it.
And, Mike Campbell's audience is like that too. Like Mike is very fortunate that, man, those people will follow him wherever he goes.
Yeah.
Which gives us a lot of freedom.
Sure.
you know?
I have this distinct memory of like, I was playing a show. It was like a big street dance in Kansas with Isaac Hoskins. And I was, I just had my phone like leaned up against the thing and watching. It was because it was being live streamed and I was watching it. And this guy that was subbing on bass was took it upon himself to start being like, Paul Douglas, if you're watching this, I'm talking about you. I'm sorry. But he was like, yeah, I've never really gotten into his voice. And I was literally just like, you have to stop talking to me right now. Please go away from me. Like, I do not care. Like, I don't care to have this discussion, you know, please leave me alone. Like, this is great. We can talk about this in the van or something later, but I was like, now is not the time. Please leave me alone.
And one of the things that happened during that, I guess it was like a 2-week period between the rehearsals and doing the Farm Aid gig, we were, and Matt Logg was actually at one of the, we went, I remember we went to a party and we were all sitting around kind of talking about Bob and drinking. And there were some naysayers there going, oh man, Bob, blah, 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 you know, not guys that were in the band, but just like other people, some of them musicians, some of them not. And I remember just kind of getting a few drinks in me and going, okay, well, I'm just going to play a random Bob Dylan song and I want you to, in real time, tell me whether or not you think it's a good song. And I just kept pulling out song after song after song. And it would be things like Tangled Up in Blue or Mr. Tambourine Man, songs that maybe, you know, but also some deeper cuts, but so many recognizable songs. And you just kept seeing people go, well, yeah, okay, that's a good one, you know, and I would be like, you've said that 10 times. You're sitting here telling me how you're not a Bob Dylan fan, but you're acknowledging that Just Like a Woman is a brilliant song.
Yeah.
And you're like, and I can keep going, you know, I'm like, I can keep going.
Yeah.
What about this one? What about it? And they're like, oh man, I forgot you wrote that one.
Yeah. Find me another artist who has this many songs that are good, who you are still ready to write off or whatever. Yeah. That's crazy.
It's funny. I used to do the same thing where I would be like, oh, well, I'm not like a huge Dylan fan. And then I would look at my collection and I'd go, oh, but I have 14 Dylan albums. I guess I'm, you know, I mean, in the grand scheme, that's not, it's by not even close to everything, but it's like, but yeah, I have 14 Bob Dylan albums that I really love. Okay. I guess I'm a pretty big Dylan fan.
Yeah. Did any Dylan scribes or anyone reach out to you about wanting to talk to you about specifically about that show?
We were not doing interviets because I was kind of encouraged not to talk about it. I mean, I was wondering about that. I hope I'm not getting in trouble talking about it now, but it was an awesome experience. And at the time we were kind of like, well, let's not gossip about Bob or anything. But yeah, there were people who did reach out and we all just kind of were like, well, we're just going to keep our mouths shut about this whole deal.
We haven't talked to, like, do you know this dude Ray Padgett?
I know who he is.
Substack.
Yeah,
and I have his book, and it's really, really fantastic. But like now you could make volume 2 of his book because you have a story, and that's kind of the deal.
I've had some really good conversations with David Frick. I've become friends with David Frick.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's one person who I've had some great, and that connection was through Mike.
Yeah.
But there's been a lot of talk about kind of Bob and Lou Reed and other things. David's really cool.
Oh man, I bet. Yeah. He seems to have whatever. He's one of those people, and he pops up in a documentary. He's always got, you know, fresh take. He's got good taste. Yeah,
he's got incredible taste, and he's just so knowledgeable. He just knows music history.
Well, what are you going to do now? What goes moving forward? Well,
I've got the record just came out, and I did the one show at the Kessler, and I don't really have any plans to do any more shows because the band was so big and my schedule was so busy. So I've got to go. The Knobs are getting ready to go out. Mike Campbell and the Dirty Knobs are going to Canada next week. So we're going to be out all of June. And then we come back and do more dates in the States in late July and August. So I'm basically touring with Mike the whole summer, and then I go back to the Sphere in the fall with that other band.
Do you say the Eagles or Eagles?
I mean, I call them the Eagles but the band is called Eagles.
Okay. Yeah. All right. That's like a record nerd thing, I think, when you just see a album cover. It just I see a lot of
I see a lot of discussion of that on the internet where people are like, it's not the Eagles, it's Eagles.
Yeah.
Nobody in the band has ever said anything to me about that.
Okay. All right, good. What's that experience like? Tell me about the Sphere. What the hell's going on there?
Man,
is that the only place you've played with them?
Yeah, unless you count like when I played American Airlines Center with for Don's thing where it was Timothy and Joe and Deacon and like, you know, where they were almost all there. I never got to play with Glenn. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I got the call last year that Stewart was going to step down, and I couldn't believe that I was on the short list of people to get that call. I don't know how many were, but I got the gig and I started doing it in January, and I've been doing it since then. So 6 months now. But we're on break for the time being, but we're coming back and doing more shows in the fall. The Sphere is, have you been?
No, I want to go see you guys. I want to go see the Dead.
Yeah.
I'd probably go listen to a record in there and just.
The venue is just, it takes some getting used to.
Yeah. Are you no amps on stage?
No amps on stage.
How's that for you?
It's different. But I've gotten used to doing in-ears. I always used in-ears when I toured with Don, and then touring with Mike, we use in-ears because the guitar rigs are so fucking loud. I mean, I'm using 3 amps with my guitar rig for the knobs, and then I think Mike has 4 amps. You know,
that's so awesome.
And sometimes he's, you know, just toggling between them, but sometimes he's blasting all 4 of them at once. It's like, so yeah, it's in-ears are a necessity in that gig. So it wasn't like it was this radical adjustment for me, but I think it was a big adjustment for Don and for Joe and for Vince. Like a lot of those guys were not used to using stereo in-ears. I think they were used to having one in, one out, using a floor wedge. All those guys are classic tube amp guys. Like you'll never catch Joe Walsh using a Kemper. You know? Yeah, he's definitely an amp guy. But that was the thing about the Spheres. No amps on stage.
Are they off stage somewhere? And
yeah. We're all using amps, but they're all in road cases in another room.
Okay,
which is pretty amazing.
Yeah. Are you singing at all with them?
Yeah. I sing on everything. So I don't sing lead, but I sing harmonies on everything.
How is that? Is that amazing?
It is, but it's a little terrifying just because there's, you know, that's what the Eagles are known for. It's that harmony singing. So, you know, there's this thing that Glenn started called the Circle of Fear, which is, you know, rehearsal in the circle and, you know, sit around and do a circle of fear with acoustic guitars and practice your harmony part. And that's a daunting thing, but it's wonderful. And I grew up with all that stuff. I mean, I was learning those songs in my bedroom when I was 14. So it's, you know, it's my life coming full circle. But yeah, I love being in the harmony stack. It's really cool.
Yeah, I bet.
It is a little scary, but I also, I feel like I blend. You know, it's all about blending with those guys. You know, we have 8 of us singing at once, which is nuts.
I've always liked your voice.
And that's so sweet of you.
I'm serious, and I knew I like
slip you that $100.
I knew what I was stepping into by even starting this. I've always liked your voice. I've always liked your singing and your writing, but there was something. Maybe it was since the Don gig. And maybe it was just some video that I saw of that George Harrison, All Things Must Pass thing that y'all did. Yeah. And I think I sent it to our mutual friend, Mike Dempsey, and was like, check out Chris doing this thing. And he was like, man, Chris's voice sounds really good. And I was like, yeah, it really does. Did you do anything to did you take any voice coaching or training?
I've never done any voice coaching. I think that there were 2 major things that helped me really kind of get better as a singer. One of them was just playing so many gigs where I had to be the singer. It was the solo residencies at places like the Barley House or whatever, the Beatle gigs, you know, playing, just learning how to sing in harmony stacks, with all those different Beatle bands that I played over the years. And then fronting my own bands and, learning how to stack my voice in the studio and stuff like that. But a huge catalyst for me was I quit smoking weed.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying I haven't done it at all, but But if you remember the old days,
They're cloudy, Chris.
Yes, they were very cloudy. It was quite a bit of consumption. And I it's been 20 years probably.
Since you quit?
Somewhere in that ballpark, maybe 16, 17. But
that's interesting.
But there was I noticed that my voice became a lot clearer and a lot stronger, and my range greatly improved.
So you're telling me inhaling hot smoke into your throat and lungs is not good for your singing voice?
Look at Paul McCartney.
Yeah. Hey.
I mean, I'm saying that I'm not saying that it did Paul McCartney any bad. I'm saying some of the greatest singers in the history of the world were heavy smokers. So maybe it's all bullshit. But I noticed that it started to change for the better for me when I started just taking a little bit better care of it. Speaking
of Paul, you played with Ringo. You have to like at this point go, when does it stop leveling up, right?
Oh, it's all downhill from here.
Come on.
I've clearly peaked this year.
So like Floyd or Roger Waters would obviously be at the very, very top of your list, right?
I mean, if you'd have ever told me the Eagles, I would have said, well, that's the top of the mountain right there. I don't think that, McCartney would maybe, obviously Pink Floyd's not going to get back together.
I wore this for you.
Yeah. I playing with McCartney would be, I can't imagine anything bigger than that, but I don't think that's going to happen.
This is a really
I would like to meet him. I do think it's possible I might meet him. Do you want to hear something crazy?
Yeah.
He played with the Eagles a year ago at the Jimmy Buffett benefit at the Hollywood Bowl. If I'd have gotten this gig a year earlier, I would have played with him.
Wow.
Because he did Let It Be with them. And all the guys, like Will Hollis told me about it. He was like, yeah, dude. Paul McCartney walks across the stage and he goes, "Hey, I'm Paul."
Oh God.
And Will's like, my knees buckled.
Yeah.
He's like, I barely remember anything from that moment, So that would be the best. But playing with Ringo, and actually I'm going to get to see Ringo again. I saw Ringo came to the Sphere a couple months ago because, he's Joe Walsh's brother-in-law.
Yeah. Right.
But, we are doing a gig with Ringo's all-star band, at the end of June, the Dirty Knobs.
Cool.
Cool.
So we've got a gig with Ringo, and
where's that?
It's in Omaha.
Cool, man.
Yeah, it's one of those. I think it's Susie Buffett is putting the whole thing together.
Okay.
But yeah,
festival thing or
it's a public gig.
Okay.
But I think it's us opening for Ringo.
I have a dumb question.
There are no dumb questions, Grady.
Wait till you hear this one. Is there someone like on the scale that we're talking about that just based on their reputation or their music or someone that you would not take a gig with?
Oh, that I wouldn't take a gig with?
Yeah. Like even someone whose music you really like, or someone like, is there someone
you trying to get me to talk some shit? Like somebody whose music somebody whose music I dislike so much that I wouldn't take the gig.
Okay, like I've heard that like Van Morrison is a real shithead, but you'd take a gig with him, right?
Yeah, I've actually encountered him in person. I think I told you this. I went to that Last Waltz gig at the Forum.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I was Mike's guest. I didn't play at that gig, but I was there on site, and it was, Scorsese was there filming. That was an absolutely insane event. That's where I met Trey.
Yeah.
I told you I met Trey.
And there's like there's not a photo of you and Trey, but there's like a photo
of him and Warren Haynes. And I'm standing in the background of it.
Photo bomb.
Classic, dude. But that was like seconds before I met and had a lovely conversation with Trey.
That's great.
And I already know Warren Haynes. Like that was my in because the Knobs and Government Mule did a tour together, and I got to jam with Warren multiple times, and he's a total sweetheart.
Awesome.
I will say that Van was a little moody at that Forum gig, but I didn't meet him personally.
Okay.
I just watched him interacting with some of the musicians. But I think a lot of it is just that he knows what he wants.
Mm-hmm.
He knows what he wants. He comes over and he kind of talks to the horns. He walks over and talks to Benmont, and then he kind of,
yeah, there's nothing wrong with that, but I guess
no, but that can be sometimes misconstrued as being a shithead. But some people genuinely
difficult to work with.
Some people are genuinely know. I don't know if I could think of anybody off the top of my head that I would say no to outright. Yeah, that's a good question though.
Okay. Well, if you think of someone,
If I think of
text
someone,
me.
I'll text you.
I'll
just
put it on-
insert it at the
Yeah. Or yeah, send me a
You
voice
finally
memo.
answered.
I will not play with
Yeah.
blank. You mentioned Bastards of Soul. You mentioned Carter. You mentioned Trey. I know it just has to be a symptom of age and like surviving. But there's like you have been like close to these people who aren't with us anymore. I've never really experienced that and gone like, I'm not going to play. I'm lucky, I guess. I'm not going to be able to play this person's music anymore because they're not here. And I know, Trey had kind of seemingly hung it up.
He just kind of shifted his energy to helping helping other musicians and getting other people's music out there. But he was still making music. He was still writing a ton of songs and he was still doing his own thing. But Trey was kind of like me. I'm the world's worst self-promoter. And Trey really wasn't great at that either. He really liked what he was doing with State Fair Records.
Mm-hmm.
He was the one that got me on State Fair Records. And what was amazing was when he approached me about putting out my double album, I said, well, look, man, it's a double. Take it or leave it, and he came to me and said, well, it's 22 songs. Could you maybe whittle it down a little bit? And I said, well, we recorded 30. I've already whittled it.
It's already done been whittled, son.
And he went to Scott, who was the head of the label, and he went to bat for me, and they put out my double album that sold 0 copies, or maybe it sold 2 or 3. But
that's, I've been on that, State Fair stage at the actual
State Fair. Yeah.
And that was the last time I saw him. But there's so much into that, and that's something I've taken into being a band leader, or I do some booking now too, which is what do artists need, and that's when I played those stages. You play 4 sets.
Yeah, it's a long day
outdoors. To an impartial crowd that really does not care if you're there or not. They're all, and they're drunk, and it's a strange experience.
Yeah.
I literally, the last time I did it was like walking around the fair just to like check it out, and was like, I can't wait to get back on stage because I know I'm safe there, and I'm with people that I like.
Well, and at least you're playing,
Yeah,
that's the beauty of it, is that even if a gig is thankless, I've done tons of gigs like that where you're just background music or whatever to somebody, but at least you're playing.
And that's what I like. All that was like the whole thing with the fair, with the flashing lights and the booze and everything, was like everything seems to be like lulling you into this one direction that I'm like, I need caffeine. I'm trying to go this other way, I want to be up, and I want to be like alert and aware, and I'm not trying to buy a bunch of tickets and be like entertained in that way.
Right.
But the whole thing there is, Trey was like running around on a golf cart, pulling people and their gear in and making sure everybody was comfortable. And the whole backstage thing there is really great. And they're wonderful. And I'm, whatever, I guess I just didn't know that was the last thing. I know probably, like the Carter thing, I know hit everybody really hard and, really suddenly.
Well, one thing about the 3 guys that you mentioned, Carter and Trey and Chadwick, is that it was all so unexpected, and they were all so young, that it's just so tragic when you lose somebody that, literally Trey was at my house 3 days before he died. And on the new album, on the liner notes, there's a little dedication to Trey, because when he came to my house, we sat and had coffee and we talked for an hour. And during that conversation, he made me promise that I was going to make a new record. He was like, I'm tired of the excuses. He was like, now that the Bastards are no longer a thing, he's like, I know. And I just kept saying, yeah, I got all these songs. And, and Trey was just like, he was like, look, we're going to make a record. You can do it entirely yourself, like you like to do. You can produce it yourself. I'm going to make sure you get it done. And then 3 days later, he was gone. And, but so on the little album sleeve, I put a little dent. I was like, I did it, man.
Yeah. We
I did what I promised you I was going to do.
You don't want him haunting you.
Yeah. And, but that's what's so hard is that, these people that you have these, and with bandmates, you know how close your relationship is with bandmates that you, especially if you've been on the road with them, because you get to really know each other. I mean, sometimes you play in a band with somebody and you just see them like maybe on Friday night for a couple hours, you have this musical connection, but then you don't really know them personally. When you get on the road with people, or you're writing songs with them, like you really get to know them.
You might know things about them that they don't know.
Right. And so that's what's really hard is when somebody suddenly who was there yesterday is gone like that, and you have no time to prepare. With Chadwick, we had a little bit of time to prepare because he was in the hospital and things kept getting worse, and we were just kind of in shock about the whole thing. Like we were just finishing an album 2 weeks ago, and now he's in. It was a critical situation, but that's just really hard when that happens.
And you guys had a lot riding on him,
Oh yeah, the whole band was built around him.
That was really working.
When he passed away, we knew, we were like, well, that's, and we were not even worried about the band at that point, because we were thinking about his family and all the, but yeah, it was kind of like, well, there is no band, and we had a record in the can too. I was like, well, we should put out the record, and then we had a second record of all these other songs we had recorded that was essentially in the can too. And I was like, well, we put out that record too, but what we're going to do? We're not going to get a replacement front man. We're not,
Yeah.
So that was a tough period,
Yeah. Is that, and so that's that for that project?
Well, yeah, everybody kind of went in different directions at that point. Danny has got his thing called Silver Skylarks with Skin now, which is great. I don't know if you've heard those records, but they're it's
cool.
Fucking killer.
Very cool.
Yeah. And then I decided to, I'd written all these songs during the Bastards that I was writing songs that were, I was writing a lot of songs specifically for that band, trying to write for Chadwick's voice, trying to write for that sound. But then my natural instinct is to write songs that have maybe a different sound that kind of sound more like me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just had this whole backlog of stuff after a long time. And then it started to occur to me, oh, well, maybe I could get back to doing solo stuff again.
Yeah.
Making something that sounds the polar opposite of what that band was or what some of the other bands were. So it was cool. It was really actually a very cathartic experience to just hole up in my little home studio. It's the first record I've ever made by myself at home,
Yeah.
Which was, I didn't know that I could actually pull that off.
I mean, I did.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
like,
you guys
knew
have been, yeah.
I knew you could.
Yeah.
Well, I knew you could. Like, you have this ability, not just beyond, like, I think you have the ability to wow people, and I think that's great, but you also just have this understanding of, because you've learned so many songs, of like kind of how music works, at least pop music or rock music or whatever you know.
Yeah, and all the solo albums I've ever done, I've always played all the instruments. I've always done the drums. I've done all the arrangements and stuff. But I always did it with somebody helping engineer. Okay. Or sometimes there would be, like, I did a record with Salim where Salim we were co-producing, but Salim had very strong opinions about production styles, and so it was always me working with somebody who knew how to get good sounds. So This was the first time I ever did my own engineering, even though I did a band. I chose not to record drums at my house. I went to Pleasantry because Salim and John get great drum sound there. And I was like, okay, we're going to do all the drums here. But it was cool to be able to engineer a record mostly myself at home and be like, oh, okay, I can actually do this.
Cool. I think anyone who kind of has an idea, mixing is another thing.
It's tough, man.
But like engineering anymore, you can.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've gotten pretty good at Pro Tools,
Yeah.
I can,
yeah.
I'm not, you put me in front of a 2-inch tape machine. I'm not sure I would do this well. So I would need somebody to run it.
Yeah. Well, okay. So for we are recording this and filming it, and we're going to have you play some music. We talked about this ahead of time. We have the Fender Rhodes set up.
Yeah, I was like, what can I play on the Rhodes?
What are you going to play?
I'm going to play a couple songs. You said 2, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to play a couple songs off the new record. I'm actually working on a follow-up record right now too, which is a completely polar opposite sound. It's like really stripped because the band at the Kessler, I called it the kitchen sink because it was 9-piece band. Damn, there's so many layers on this record Across the Milky Way, which just came out. But the one that I'm working on at home right now it's going to be like a Nick Drake record. It's cool. It's just almost entirely solo acoustic. So
okay, you gonna put any like strings or
maybe
sounds kind of cool. Like
I'm kind of thinking, but the more I think about it, the more I think I don't want to fall into that production thing, which I do, because I'll stack harmonies all day. And I'll put all kinds of layers, and I'm like, man, it'd be really cool if I just didn't do that.
Well, you could do solo acoustic, and that'd be like, that's my performance.
Yeah,
and then,
maybe have an arranger do some strings. Yeah, so I'm still working through all that, but that's what I'm working on. But
I'm excited to hear that.
But to answer your question that I deviated from, I'm going to do one song that they're both piano-based songs, and I played acoustic piano on both of them, but one of them has some Wurlitzer piano, which is close enough to a Rhodes that it would probably work. It's called Satellite Alone, and then I'm going to do another one called Parallel, which is kind of a solo piano thing, which I think will be interesting on the Rhodes. Cool. Yeah.
You ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Hey, thanks for coming by.
Dude, thanks so much for having me. I'm flattered that you thought I'd be interesting to talk to. So.
Man, thank you.
Dude, it's been great knowing you all these years.
Absolutely. To many more.
Yes, let's do it.